Welcome to Goal Setting, a family event. I'm Mr. D, Dennis Denoya with Mr. D Math. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute. You're a math guy? What do you know about goal setting? Well, believe it or not, I actually know a lot about goal setting. I'm going to tell you my story as we get going. But what I'd like you to do first of all is to know a little bit, just my quick background, the 10-second version. I write middle school and high school math programs for homeschool students, and I have students participating in those programs all across the United States. So there you go. There's my 10-second blurb about me, but you'll find out more about me as we get going here. What I want to ask you question is, when's your someday? What if someday, which usually never gets here because it's someday, what if it was today? Let's change it from someday to being today, because it's time to dream big. And I've done this process with young people, with adults, with parents. I've done it in business settings, and I've done this for years, ever since I first saw this process, this goal setting process, because when I meet young people today, and probably even more so today than ever before, because there's so many different avenues that young people can take when they're trying to find out what they want to do. And what we're finding in the business world today is that jobs are more specialized. So you have to have some kind of specialized training when you decide what it is you want to do, and then off you go. Well, if you ask young people what they want to do, well, I don't know. And they have all these different paths and they're not sure. So we're going to actually narrow that down and make it work, and work in a way that it works for you and every single person in your family. You may have seen other goal setting programs before where they've talked about like the SMART acronym that you see here, SMART being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. Now, if you like this kind of thing, well, you're about to be a little bit disappointed. If you've seen this before and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what we're going to do again? Nope, we're not going to do this at all. We're literally going to go a completely different direction and have all these things show up in your goal, but you don't have to go through this process of figuring out, well, what's specific, what's measurable, what's attainable, is it relevant, is it time-bound, blah, 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 blah. Now, we're not going to do any of that. We're actually going to just get to work and create goals. So here I am sitting in a graduate program, and the professor says to me and to the entire class, what's your self-fulfilling prophecy? And I thought to myself, self-fulfilling prophecy? Well, I don't actually know. What is that? So now over the years, I've actually created my own definition about that. How did I get my definition? Well, I did what most people do today. I looked it up. How did I look it up? Well, I looked it up on Google. So check it out. The self, that's you. Okay, that's the first part of the self-fulfilling prophecy. The self is you. Fulfilling. Well, fulfilling is to put something into effect. Easy enough. So I am putting something into effect. Well, what am I putting into effect? Well, I'm putting into effect a prophecy. Well, what's a prophecy? Well, prophecy is a prediction of something to come. So look at those three things. I'm going to be doing something. I'm putting something into effect. What am I putting into effect? Some prediction of something that's going to happen in the future. A self-fulfilling prophecy. Here it is. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction of something to come that you put into effect. And if you notice here, it says nothing is impossible. As a matter of fact, the word itself says I'm possible. Audrey Hepburn. If you've ever seen any of the Audrey Hepburn movies from way back when, then you know who that is. If you don't, no worries. Just know that impossible actually says itself, I'm possible. Thanks, Audrey. Great quote. Now, you notice I hear that I'm saying these are examples that people have been practicing. Now, you may say, oh my gosh, that's me. Or you may say, no, that's not me. Let's check it out. Let's see. I'm going to have a lousy day, and then you do. Have you ever had that happen before? You go, oh my gosh, this is just not going to go well. And then all of a sudden, all these awful things happen during the day. I'm going to fail this test, and then you do. This class is going to be boring, and then it is. Now, by the way, just give you guys a hot tip here about this class is going to be boring, and then it is. If you think that you're watching this right now and this is going to be boring, you're right, it will be. So we need to interrupt that. We need to come up with something different. We need to come up with a way that we can have this not be boring. How are we going to do that? I'm about to show you. Because we're going to change from the examples that people have been practicing to some examples that people have not been practicing. By the way, you may say, well, this isn't me at all. Well, here's how you're going to tell, because are you this person instead? Are you the person that wakes up in the morning, because these are the examples that people have not been practicing, to say, I'm going to have an amazing day, and then you do. I'm going to ace this test, and then you do. This class is going to be the best class ever, and then it is. Now, I know a few of you right now are saying, oh yeah, I do that. Well, do you do it every day? Do you have to work at it? Do you have to remind yourself to say it? It's actually the example that I'm using right now. This isn't natural for us. This isn't how we wake up in the morning. We wake up like, oh, I have so much stuff to do, and I have so much stuff to do that I didn't sleep well the night before because I have so much stuff to do today. I got to take a test the next day. Oh, I'm so nervous about the test. Oh, I didn't sleep well. You notice how this is happening, right? We go to bed at night knowing that we've got this next thing getting ready to happen, and then we don't sleep well because of what we think is about to happen. We don't go to bed going like, man, tomorrow's going to be so amazing. I can't wait to take that test. Oh my gosh, I'm going to this class. It's going to be the best class ever. Now, that last one there, the best class ever, I have to tell you myself, I had to work on that a lot. You may not know this, but teachers are the worst students on the planet. The worst. Put a bunch of teachers in a class and have someone instructing a group of teachers. It is not going to go well for the teacher. They've got to work double hard for those teachers who are the students. How do I know that? Well, because I've done a lot of teacher training before, and oh yeah, absolutely. And I was one of those teachers who would sit in there as the student, and I was the worst student you could find. Wasn't going to pay attention, it was going to be boring, and blah, blah, and it was every time. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Right now, say to yourself, this is going to be the best class ever. By the way, if you haven't said to yourself, today's going to be an amazing day, take a break right now, take a look in the mirror, and have this conversation with the person in the mirror. You are amazing. I am so glad that I am you. Oh my gosh, brilliant, fabulous, talented. That's me. I've got a test later today. No problem. I'm going to ace this test. By the way, acing a test, there's actually research to show that the mindset actually does make a difference when you're going to take a test. Take two different people who studied the same amount of time in the same way, that their mindset actually does make a difference in how they perform on the test. The person's thinking that they're going to actually do great on the test will do better than the person that doesn't. So this is about to be, and this is going to be, and it already is, your best class ever. This is the best thing you've done all day. Here we go. Ready, set, goals. So we're going to create our self-fulfilling prophecy. How do we do that? Well, there's three parts. The first part is to determine what you want. The second part is to determine when you're going to get what you want. And the third part is to create that future. Now, I'm going to introduce you to an instrument that you can print out. Matter of fact, if you haven't printed this out already, you should pause the video, go to the worksheet of creating your future, and print this out so you can see what I'm talking about and be working on this as we go through the video. Okay, so pause it, print it out. You'll see it right there. You can print it out right from the website, right where you are right now. You're watching this video, print that out, and you can see exactly what it is and how it works. All right, so now you've printed it out, you're back, and let's go. What is it you want? Now, let's talk about this just for a moment. What do you want? You notice it's not what does your family want? What do you think you want for your family? What do your parents want you to do? What do you want your kids to do? This is not about that. This is about what you want. What do you want? What's something that you want? So I want you to think about, what do you want? Now, I'm going to ask you the next thing is I want you to think about today, whatever your day is today. Let's say it's July 1st, 2016. What I'd like you to do is to come up with what you want, but have it be 1 year from today. July 1st, 2017, something that I want. Now I'm asking you the same question, July 1st, 2017, or whatever your 1 year from today is, what is it that you want? By the way, you can do this several different ways. If you want to have a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, a 3-month goal, a 1-week goal, an end of the day goal, whatever it is, it's totally fine. I'm picking 1 year, so we'll just use that as our example throughout this video. What do you want? Now that you've got what you want and you already know when you're going to get it, why? Well, because it's 1 year from the day that it is while you're watching this program. Now we've got it. What is it? You've got it? Great. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Tell somebody next to you in the same room, or get on your phone and text somebody, hey, I'm doing this goal setting program right now and I have to tell someone what I want 1 year from today. Here it is. Make sure you've told someone. Okay, great. Here we go. Now, you're going to be working with what I call the cluster diagram. The cluster diagram is actually broken up, and if you printed yours out, you'll see that not only do we have here the purple rectangle in the middle of the page, and then those 4 red shapes that are called ellipses, those stretched out circles. Yours has 8 of those red stretched out circles. I've got 4 on here just so you can see the screen a little bit better, but feel free, work with the ones that you have here. What I want you to do now is this, is take that paper that you just printed out and write down what you want in the purple rectangle. Put the date that you're going to have it. Why is that going to be? Well, because you already know it's 1 year from today, or whatever date you pick. Put what you want. Put it here. Now, hot tip, are you ready? Moms, don't have this be about your kids. Dads, don't have this be about the mom. Moms, don't have it be about your husbands. No. Have it be about you. Now, you may want those things for your kids. You may want those things for your family, but this isn't about them. This is about you. So come up with something that you want. Why am I sharing that with you? Because you're going to practice this with your family, and you want to go through this process yourself so that you can have your family go through it as well. You know, I was looking at and trying to decide this myself way back when. Here I am back in the early 1990s going through my master's program, and I was studying counseling and psychology, and the professor asked us, well, what do you want? At the time, I was being recruited by the university to go into their PhD program. Now, why was I being recruited to go into their PhD program? Well, it just happened I was good at math, and it happened that I really liked psychology and counseling. So guess what? The PhD professors there really wanted a numbers guy who understood counseling and psychology to go into the PhD program so I could do a bunch of work for them. So yeah, I was a high recruit for that program. Now, as you can see here, Mr. D Math didn't go that way, did it? Nope, it didn't, because I actually came up with a different goal. I was one of those places. Which way do I go? Do I start a tutoring company, or should I actually go through and do this PhD program? Well, the tutoring company is the place I headed, and I'm going to share more with you about that as we go. That tutoring company has literally evolved into the Mr. D Math program that you see and young people work with all over the U.S. today. Okay, so now you've written down what you want, and you've put the date when you're going to get it. Great. So now let's go and look and see what we're going to do next. In part 1, in determining what we want, you're going to notice that you've already got what you want, and you've already got a date when that's going to happen. But what I want you to do now is come up with 6 things that are going to have to happen to get you what you want. That's step 2. Where do those 6 things go? Well, they go in the red ellipses, those stretched out circles. Now notice on your paper you have 8. I'm only asking you to come up with 6, and you can come up with 8 if you want. Put them in there. Now don't worry about the date right now. Just put in what are 6 things that would have to happen to get you what you want. What does that mean? Well, there's what you want. That's step 1. Now, what are 6 things that would have to happen to get you what you want? And you can write them right in the stretched out circles. By the way, you'll notice in the handout that there's an organization page that you can actually organize this first, write them down, get them in there. When you have them nice and neat, then go and put them in your cluster diagram. Okay, get them nice and neat, get them looking exactly the way you want. What are the 6 things you want to have happen? Write them down, get them organized, and then go back and put them in the cluster diagram. Okay, so now you've got that. It looks something where you've got your what you want in the purple rectangle. You've got the 6 things that are going to happen in the red ellipses. What's next? Well, come up with at least 2. You can come up with more, but 2 things that will have to happen to get you each of those 6 things to get you what you want. If you notice right now that you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what the things would have to happen. That's a clear sign that there's a muscle to develop, and this is the muscle you're going to practice. So practice this. Make it up. If you're not sure, ask the person next to you. Well, here's what I want. What would I have to do to get this? You probably can come up with it on your own, but if not, ask someone. And then if you do ask someone, here's the deal. If you ask them and they tell you, you don't get to argue with them about it. You have to accept it and write it down. Okay, that's the directions. So now you're going to take the 2 things, at least 2, and put them in the little rectangles that go around the ellipses so you can see exactly what it is that's going to have to happen to get you what you want. Now, some of you may not be auditory style learners, the way that some of you are hearing this going like, wow, Mr. D, that makes perfect sense what you want me to do. If not, don't worry, because there are directions that tell you how to do this as well. When you printed out the handout, just read along as I'm talking with you as we do this program. And I know you're saying right now, wow, this is the best program ever, the best class ever. Why is that? Well, it's because you said so. Good job. All right, so here we go. We've got our 6 things. We've got the 2 things around those 6 things. And you can have more than that. That's why there's 8 red ellipses and there's 4 rectangles. If you have more things, that's fine. Write down as many as you can, but you need at least 6 and at least 2. 6 things to have happen, 2 things that need to have each of those 6 things happen to get you what you want 1 year from today. All right, well, that's part 1. Part 2, come up with some dates. When you put those 6 things in the order in which they need to happen, and by the way, it's fine if 2 of them happen at the same time or close to the same time, pick some dates. Now, you're going to say, yeah, but how am I supposed to know when that's going to happen? You don't, so make it up. You know, the greatest thinkers of our time are just that. They're thinkers. They thought it up. They made it up. They picked a date when something was going to happen, and off they went. I had to do the same thing when I was starting my tutoring company back in the early 90s. I had to pick a date. When's it going to happen? And I picked a date, and then it did. And it happened, just like that. So you've got your dates. You're going to put them in that cluster diagram. Where do they go? Well, they go right under what you said you were going to have happen. In the red ellipse, you wrote down something that's going to have to happen, put the date there. And in your big purple rectangle, you've already got the date, so we're ready to roll. All right, we've got part 1 done. Now we've got part 2 done. And you notice it's getting organized. And it's organized how? Well, it's organized by putting those things in order exactly the way you want to have them happen, and you wrote them down. Okay, that's it. You've put the 6 things in order from when they need to happen, and if 2 of them happen at the same time, that's totally fine. Pick those dates, put it on your cluster diagram, and off we go. By the way, make sure your cluster diagram's looking nice and neat. That's why you have the worksheet first, so you can actually go in and work with this first. Now it's time to write your story. What? I have to write a story? Yeah, you got to write a story. Here comes the story. This is the kind of story you're going to write. Get ready, there's rules for the story. And the first rule is this: begin with the end in mind. Here's the rules for the story. It must be a reflective story, like it's already happened. It must start with describing yourself after you've gotten what you wanted. And then it must then go back and reminisce about all the things that happened and when they happened that got you to the future. And you can use the 6 things that happen as sentences in your story. And you must know this: whatever you write can and often does happen exactly the way that you create it. Have fun, be creative, and be open to a world where anything is possible. The cluster diagram is now your layout for the story. You've literally made your outline for how to write the story. You've got the dates for when things are going to happen. And I'll go back to the first time I wrote my story. I had to look at what happened. Well, I wanted to start a tutoring company. What did it look like? Well, here's what I did. Here I am sitting in graduate school back in the early 90s, and I was still working in the school system, and I wanted to get out of the school system, start a tutoring company so I could really focus on what was important to me. In this case, working on math curriculum for all students of all ages. So here I go. Instead of just teaching middle school or high school math, which I was doing, I wanted to go beyond that and actually get to be with young people from all ages. Okay, so I had to write my story. I had to come up with what was going to happen. Well, the first thing I was going to do was I was going to actually, and that was what? Have my tutoring company. But my tutoring company was going to be on a piece of property that I owned. That was it. I wanted to buy the building. I wanted to have my office be there and own the property at the same time and have lots of students coming. So here I am, and I'm thinking about looking at this property and seeing the property, and I'm getting ready to open up this brand new tutoring center in a building that I bought and have the students come in. So I'm thinking about this. This is the first day of the brand new tutoring center being opened. This is how it is for me. I woke up, I was so excited, I couldn't wait to get there. I went out and I bought new clothes. I'm having a great breakfast before I go to see my brand new tutoring center to open up the doors and have the grand opening for all the students to come and see. I'm looking great. I feel great. You know, I even noticed that getting ready for this opening day, that it was time for me to get myself back into shape, and I started exercising and eating better, and it was really awesome to do all that. And so now, after I've got myself described what I'm doing, then I start to go back and reminisce about all the things that happened and when they happened that got me to that future. And I remember about a year before that I was sitting in that graduate class when the professor first asked me about that self-fulfilling prophecy and figuring out what I really wanted to do. And that's when I figured out that I knew I didn't want to get that PhD program. I actually wanted to go in and I wanted to have that tutoring center open, and I wanted to buy that building within a year. So I went back and I had to convert my extra bedroom in my house into an office and start having students come to my house. But then from there, I needed to get an office so I could start getting myself established out in the community. So I went and I rented an office first so I could see how that went. And I decided to do that 6 months later. So I would work from home for the first 6 months, and then I was going to sign a 6-month lease, and then I wanted to go out and buy a property and get this thing open and ready to go. Now, if you notice, I'm talking about things that had to happen, and I had to actually go and do that. Now, what you may not know is that that's what happened within a month or so of those things, but it was pretty much like that. Within the next week, I had that room converted into an office, and I started bringing students that I was going to do some tutoring on the side because, you know, as most teachers that work in the school system, you had to go to your second job, so mine was just working with more math things anyway, and off we went. So now, students coming to the house. Now what's next? Well, now I needed to get out of the house. Why? Well, because first of all, for my family, it was like getting too much with everybody trafficking in the house. And secondly, too many students coming. We needed to get an office. So I rented an office so I could see what that was like. And then I needed to buy a building. And I did. And it was amazing how that all happened. But it literally happened exactly the way that I said it was going to. Kind of amazing how all that was. Now, I eventually sold that company, that tutoring company, because it was time to focus on the Mr. D Math brand, which is what we're doing today. So fast forward these 20 years, here we are later, but it all started with writing this story. You know, I had to have fun with it. I had to be creative. I had to be open to a world where anything is possible. By the way, when I bought that building, I bought it where, when I was at the closing table, they actually gave me money to go in and renovate the building. Go figure. A world where anything is possible, it was exactly that way. So now whatever it is that you wanted, I don't know, maybe you're a young person and you're a musician and you want to play a concert somewhere, or you're an athlete and you have some kind of particular goal that you're trying to get, a benchmark that you want to achieve, something you want to be able to do, maybe a number of home runs you want to hit if you're a baseball player, or if you're a track star or swimmer, or whatever it is that you want to be able to achieve a certain time or certain event or a certain victory or number of victories that you're going to get. Maybe you're a student, maybe you're taking the SAT or ACT and you're trying to get into that college and there's a certain score that you need to make to get into that college. So talk about how you got accepted into the college and how you made that score on the SAT to get into the college that you wanted to go to. You're a mom. Well, as a mom, maybe there was something you really wanted for yourself, and that was maybe you wanted to figure out a way to have more time in your day for yourself as you were going through and figuring out all the things you needed to do for your young person and what it was like for you and what you would do with that time and how you got that extra 2 hours a day that actually gave you whatever you needed so that you could do the things that were important to you. If you're a dad, I don't know, maybe it was that extra $10,000 in your bank account. Whatever it is, I hope you're finding those ways now that you can go in and you can write your story. Next thing, now that your story is written, right now, what you want to do is pause the recording, go in, write your story. When you're done with that, then turn this back on. Okay, welcome back. Now that you've got your story written, your next job is this. It's time to share it with a friend. Share it with a family member, share it with someone you know, but get it out there, share it. You could even share it with me if you like, but you need to read it out loud to someone else. If you want to email it to me, that would be great, but definitely read it out loud to someone else. Get it into existence. When you commit your dreams to paper, you release them out into the world. When you say what your dreams are to another person, you literally now have created some accountability in the world. You've said it, now you got to do it. A declaration. It seems to me we had a Declaration of Independence a few years back. They put those dreams to paper, and here we are today. Use that cluster diagram as your visual display. Put it up in your bathroom so you can see it every day. I've done that myself. It's an amazing tool to see it every day because it's always there. Keep that visual display present for you. Share your story with another person and achieve those dreams. It really comes down to this: mind over matter. What you create in the mind, it does matter, and you create it first, and then you make it happen. So look where we are. We're right back at the beginning. So what I'm thinking for you is that hopefully you found this program to be amazing, that it's worked for you, that you've gone through and you've used the cluster diagram to create and organize your ideas, and then you wrote a brilliant, amazing story. Your job is to go out and be the talented, amazing, brilliant person that you already are. Fulfill your dreams and have them be amazing. I look forward to hearing about these as you create them. By the way, I have lots of friends and students who have done this process just like I have and have created really big things and have had big things happen to them. All right, well, thanks for your time and attention and how you were able to listen today and stop and create this and work with it. I appreciate you thinking through this and doing the thinking that it took to actually come out and create something that's important to you. I look forward to hearing from you in the future. And again, I'm Mr. D from Mr. D Math, and this is Goal Setting, your family event. Thanks so much, and check out all the other programs that are available for you as well, and you can see more things about me in the math program. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.